Okay, we're on the afternoon break in the questioning of Mark Jenner, the undercover police officer who infiltrated the Colin Roach Centre, numerous Red Action, the Independent Working Class Association, Anti-Fascist Action, various other family justice campaigns and anti-racist groups. Just before we started the afternoon session, as I alluded to on Twitter, for those of you who are following me, I was spoken to by the chair of the inquiry. We were all back in, ready for the afternoon session, and I was called down to the front where he told me off for the way in which I had reported some of nothing that I had said had broken any restriction orders. There was nothing that I had put out publicly that needed to be taken down or removed. But the way in which that I had done so was contrary to his direct orders. So though he accepted it was a mistake on my part, that I hadn't intentionally broken anything, that didn't matter, that if I was to make a similar mistake again, even though I hadn't broadcast any restricted information, that I would have my devices that could broadcast outside the room removed from me before I entered the hearing room, or I would be barred from entering the hearing room. I'm not sure if that's likely to happen when we've only got 1 or 2 more days of hearings before Christmas, but I mean, that will be in place for the rest of the inquiry. I'm sure I'll be able to stay on the right side of John Mitting from here on in. I found, I get the impression that he doesn't really want to get rid of me, but he feels he has to. I'm sure there's pressure coming on him from outside of the inquiry process, from those parts of the state which are very concerned about any sort of restricted information coming out, who are very keen for me to stop doing this kind of reporting. But there we go. Anyway, I am joined by David, who was watching the afternoon hearing with me. And what do you make of what Mark Jenner had to say?
Okay, so I'm going to refer to my notes. So by all means, if I pause occasionally. So the first part of it was a report on a Blair Peach commemoration event.
Yeah, so we were taking to a lot of his reports, like one after the other, basically.
Which I just briefly said, I was part of that. And I think with a lot of his reports, there's this absolute exaggeration of the potential for disorder.
Very much.
There was absolutely no chance there was going to be any disorder of that. It would have been completely inappropriate. But nonetheless, he says that there was the potential of disorder. So there seems to be a lot of self-justification, and a lot of times when it seems he exaggerates and exaggerates any potential for any form of violence. But that was the first time. The name Bob Lambert came up, which is a name I'm familiar with, because by this time I believe he's a manager of the Special Demonstration Squad.
Yes.
There was some interesting. There was a whole part which it seems to be that his primary justification for involvement is Red Action and anti-fascist action. So again, they're playing up a lot of the connections between Red Action, anti-fascist action, and PIRA and INLA. And he did accept that these actually there was no active participation by Red Action, anti-fascist action in those two organisations.
I mean, this is something which keeps coming up. There's this exaggerated risk he puts in his reports. This spectre of like, oh, it's the IRA. They're connected to the IRA, and then when he's pushed on it, he's like, no, there was no connection whatsoever. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. There's another interesting element that came up. So David Vaness, who is the acting ACSO. Assistant Commission
Special Operations,
right? So he had a meeting with it seems like most of the Special Demonstration Squad, and it was. I actually have to say that I'm going to give a commendation to David Barr, the counsel, because he actually seems to be getting to the grip, getting to some of the nitty gritty of this thing. Because he was asked, did Jenner have feel that he needed to inform the ACSO of his relationship with Alison, and he didn't feel that was necessary, and he gave the impression that it was just a sort of a very light-handed touch from the ACSO. That was my feeling about it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a good question, I think, by Barr about, like, so did you tell him about your relationship with Alison? And he was like, oh, no, I didn't. It wasn't important. But you'd have had no problem with him knowing. He probed quite a lot on that.
Yeah. Just moving on, there was Newham Monitoring Project, gets a mention. again, that their completely legitimate work
Mm.
was somehow linked into anti-fascist action, and as though their legitimate work would be trying to get fascists to come on the street so that they could be attacked by anti-fascist action. Again, when it actually came to it, there was absolutely no evidence of anything like that happening.
I mean, it was once again, Mark Jenner sort of say he stood by his report, but also that, yeah, it was a nonsense to suggest that the Neuromonitoring Project would do that. I mean, it's just he stood by his report, yet said it was nonsense, all in the same breath.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, moving on into 1998, the Colin Roach Centre is shut down. The David Barr was saying, was it not an opportunity to think, well, perhaps your involvement as an SDS officer should be ended? He justified his continued commitment because of this alleged involvement between anti-fascist action and Irish republicanism, which was not proven at all. There was no evidence of it. Again, something that came up that's quite interesting was Condon's, the Metropolitan Commission's apology to the Stephen Lawrence campaign for its police findings. Again, this was really fascinating because Jenner is a copper through and through. He's an absolutely, there's no second thoughts. And he was very, very upset by the finding that the police are institutionally racist. With David Barr's questioning, it seems like he didn't really know what institutional racism was.
No, not at all. He just talked about how insulted he was. When he was asked, did you have an understanding of what it means about the institutional racism? He said no, he wasn't interested. It was insulting. He was outraged, and so were all the other police. So was everybody else.
Yeah. So, and then there was further. It went through further with a national civil rights movement, which was being set up. And he's giving reports from that. He's again trying to stress that he conceded that was a legitimate organization, but his take on it was that they will always be trying to play up anti-police, making it an anti-police issue. And of course, there's David Barr, I think, was quite good because he highlighted the fact that this was post the finding that the police are institutionally racist.
Yeah, and which he referred to as an allegation. Mark Jenner was, that's an allegation, and the allegation of it. But I had to point out, no, this was a finding of the public inquiry.
Yeah, and clearly he's not terribly fond of Michael Mansfield.
No, not at all.
Which of course, from my point of view, is a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely.
He describes him as sort of trying to play a role in anti-police activity. Again, it was David Barr was saying, well, actually, of course, it is completely legitimate to look at police failings, and he kind of reluctantly, I think, accepted that there was a legitimate role for him on that. But
yeah. I mean, so there's this pattern, isn't there, of like just exaggerated stuff, which then rolls back. I mean, I think the things around his rejection of the Stephen Lawrence inquiry report, his anger over that was really offensive. So if I seem a bit distracted, I can hear in the background one of the inquiry lawyers complaining about my behaviour earlier. It seems I'm in trouble again. I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, but I can hear lawyers arguing about me in the background. I do apologise.
Do you want to wrap up now? Or
no, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, no, I just think that, again, there was an allegation that Frank Smith, who's somebody I don't know, was extremely violent and short-tempered, again, with no evidence. He always relies on sort of basically hearsay. Somebody he knew in the pub said something about this person. So there's a lot of defamation going on here, and there's a lot of. Well, I actually think there are quite a few people who've got a case against the Metropolitan Police, but that's something to be seen in future.
I mean, I think there's a great deal of people who've got a case against the Metropolitan Police. This is only a short break. I'm curious to find out what the sanction I'm going to receive now from the inquiry is for whatever it is I've done wrong. I've no idea what that is. But I'm just seeing the nod that the things are going back in, so we better go in. It's only a short break. I'll see you at the end of the day. Bye for now. Cheers. Thanks for joining us.